I was thrilled to see the talented actor Daniel Kaluuya win a BAFTA last weekend for his role in the horror film Get Out. Young actors like him are playing a big role in raising the profile of British talent around the world. But the real horror story is the way arts funding in the UK, which has enabled talent like him to come from very humble beginnings, is being decimated by year after year of cuts. I was lucky enough to be at the BAFTAs, and it was truly moving how time and time again award winners took to the stage to praise the public sector funding that gave them opportunities against the odds and to warn how few opportunities exist now. If we're serious about Britain being a global nation with presence and influence on the world stage, then why are we so comfortable with the demise of our creative sectors? We won't notice how important it is until it's too late.
I mean, Afua, to be fair, in the last big round of cuts, the Arts Council didn't get cut. The government decided not to cut them. They cut them in the years before, but they didn't cut them in the last round. But
you're going to force me to bring in the statistics.
No, I'm not about statistics. They were not cut in the last round. I can tell you, I was chairman of the British Film Institute.
We want to kill them off.
Part of the problem is actually local authorities who also used to fund the arts are being squeezed, and are squeezed to such an extent that almost they can get nothing. You can get nothing from local authorities. But the Arts Council, the other big issue, the Arts Council is gradually shifting its policy. I don't think fast enough to say, actually, we spend too much on the arts in London and not enough in the rest of the country. And that's become worse because of local authorities being cut.
I agree.
I agree with you in the sense that the creative industries are an important part of the economy and of the culture of this country. And that should be reflected in our spending. Now, to be fair to George Osborne, I think he did reflect that in the last set of cuts.
OK, let's just quickly, before I bring everyone else in, look at the statistics, because you're right, Greg, that Arts Council England funding is not as diabolical as, on these statistics as you might think. So between 2010 and 2016, England Arts Council funding was down 3.6%. Real terms art spending in Scotland, for Creative Scotland, was down 11% and Wales down 12%.
Yep.
But the reason I don't think that's the full picture is, as you said, local authorities have been hammered. Some have been threatening to reduce their cultural funding by 100%. And they've had 17% overall reduction in budgets. And that's hit grassroots art. So, the National Theatre, the Barbican, the Royal Shakespeare Company, they've consistently had public sector funding. But if you look at grassroots community organisations and actually the kind of projects that give young people like Daniel Kaluuya a foot up, they're the ones that have been decimated. And the other source of funding that is important in the arts is the EU. We've had more than £1 billion funding from the EU, and films like Slumdog Millionaire could never have been made were it not for EU funding. Now, what I'm saying is, how are the British government going to compensate for this huge gap in the arts budget when we leave Europe? Because I'm not saying we can't do it alone, but I would like to see a plan for it, and I haven't seen anything resembling that.
The reality is that we live in a country...
I was just going to read a response to it. Yeah, just forgive me a minute. I'm not the spokesperson for the Department for Culture, Media and Sports, but they did. Yeah, here we are. We're going to have to read their defence of this situation. No, I agree with Afua. Right, so what they've said, if we have a look at this, they say the UK is a creative powerhouse, developing and producing award-winning films and TV enjoyed by millions globally. We are determined to see this fantastic success continue, which is why £70 million of government and National Lottery cash was invested in the British film industry last year. On top of that, our tax reliefs for the creative industries are among the best in the world and have helped attract more than £11 billion of investment since 2007. That's from the DCMS, and that party political broadcast is now over.
Can I talk about the Warwick Commission, which I'm sure you know about, which found that all the state and lottery-funded arts projects were accessed by a very narrow, social, economic, educated group, and that's the middle classes, and that's the bottom line in this country. The arts they're a glorious luxury, but they're not enjoyed by the working classes. You mentioned Daniel Kaluuya. He's one of the lucky ones, but generally, 87% of all the free museum passes in this country are taken up by the middle classes, not by the poor. And to hear, you're talking there, you sounded so terribly rich and privileged and middle class there. I'm at the BAFTAs and we're talking about how we can fund the arts.
Actually, I was talking about
People
grassroots organisations.
The reality
Carol.
is we live in a country, Afua, where people are dying in hospital corridors, where old people are dying at home alone because there is no money to fund the social care budget. You know, we have councils closing down because of lack of money. Public services closing down.
Councils closing down?
Yes, councils are closing in this country. Councils are closing.
I'm not sure if you've heard anything I said, Carol. I'm talking about the funding for elite institutions remains. What I'm talking about is grassroots organisations.
Where is the money?
Not middle-class people in London.
We're told not to talk over each other.
What you're saying is not related to what I'm saying.
Where is the money going to come from? The money, we need money. I would rather money go into the health and the social care of this country than into the arts, which is enjoyed by the privileged.
I just need to correct something. I do not think councils are closing down.
Should we just tell him? Nottinghamshire is on the brink of bankruptcy, as is Surrey.
Northamptonshire is on the brink of bankruptcy. Councils are not closing down.
They're on the brink. OK, so let me rephrase.
You might want to say they're on the brink.
Michelle, why don't you give us a view from Hull?
2 years ago, I would have looked at you and I would have rolled my eyes. I'd have thought, you're just a London bubble, who cares about the arts and all the rest of it. I promise you, I would have been on your side, I'd have rolled my eyes, I'd have just gone, whatever, London thing. Last year, you've just pointed out I'm from Hull.
Then you moved to London.
Last year, Hull was awarded the City of Culture status, right? Yeah. And what I've seen, and to your point, health and all the rest of it is very important in this country, but we're also in a situation where it's on front page news today, more people on antidepressants. You know, we're a very lonely nation, all the rest of it. What I've seen happen to my city as a result of the City of Culture has been incredible. I've got goosebumps just thinking about it. I've been at so many events in the Hull city centre where I've seen working class guys, my family, my friends. If you could see their face, I promise you, I'm goosebumpy. If you could see our faces, we're in our town and all around us, we've got lights, we've got music, we've got production. You've got men in their 70s who would have gone, culture, bloody hell's culture. Yeah. These guys are like, wow, it's brought our community together. It's brought 9 out of 10 residents onto the streets, engaging in arts. So now I'm actually a surprised fan of investing in the arts. I think it brings us together, it makes us happier, it makes us healthier, and I think that we should continue funding it. I would challenge your point slightly, because I need to disagree with you a little bit, or else I'll be confused.
We'll be worried.
I would say that when I think of EU funding, I do actually see that as our own money being recycled and given back to us. So I never get worried about what's going to happen. I'd like to see a plan in place for continual thing, but I don't see exiting the EU as something that should significantly damage that.
I'd like to add, I'm not so sure that it's accurate to say that working class people don't enjoy the arts, because whether it's
said it weren't accessible to them.
Well, it is. Well, the television made it accessible to everybody, and I think that to assume, not that you did assume, but to assume that only middle class people enjoy the arts is to completely.
Didn't say that. This is total.
I just said you didn't say that.
I said they're accessible to the middle class. So why even say it in the same breath?
Well, because I'm issuing a government health warning to everybody else out there. I said you didn't say it. I'm saying that to assume, if one were to assume, that it is solely a middle class pursuit, knowing that you did did say that.
What did you say?
Is dangerous. Hold on, can I just finish my point?
I thought that's what Carol said.
Right, so what I'm saying is, Carol,
like a middle-class person
is that because I'm sure lots of working class people, I know for a fact, right, enjoy watching the arts on television. They watch TV shows, they watch films, and our actors have been punching way above their weight when it comes to the Oscars, when it comes to Hollywood films. And actually, it's those from working class backgrounds that are doing the best at the moment. Idris Elba, Kahlua, who just won.
And that was the whole point of
right? And I think that we've got to invest in that because of the points that Michelle made.
There is one issue, and that is that the arts have been propped up in this country by the lottery.
Yeah.
And the number of people buying lottery tickets is going down, and therefore the amount of money available is going down. And that is a serious issue.